So in this video, we're going to be talking about Ohio State. So recently, August 4th, the coaches poll came out. They were ranked number one. They got 38 of the first place votes. That was the most by far. The next highest was 14 first place votes. So by far, coaches think they are the number one team in college football. And it's very interesting because let's look into last year's Ohio State team. Last year's Ohio State team was a great team. They went 12 and 2, 9 and 0 in conference. They were 21st in points per game. They put up 33 points per game, and their defense, it was an all-time great defense. They gave up just 9 points per game. And really, when you go look at it, look at their games, they didn't give up 10 points until week 6. Their sixth game of the season when they played Illinois. That is the first time they gave up 10 all year. They gave up 20 just once, and that was to the Miami in the college football playoff, a game they lost. So this was a dominant defense. And if you start really looking into uh, the defensive statistics, they only gave up 200 yards passing twice to Illinois and to Indiana. They gave up just 100 yards rushing 4 times. Now, this one is where they probably, fell off a little bit because if you look here, the last 3 games of the season, they gave up 100 yards rushing in each one of those games, and the last two is obviously the ones they lost. But even then, it's still a great defense. That's it. The losses weren't really on the defense ever. As you could see, they lost 13 to 10 to Indiana. You can't put that on the defense. And even though yes, they gave up 24, it wasn't really the defense. I mean, if you look here, they gave up 138 yards passing. I'm not really going to put that on them. So, and again, looking at the draft from last year, 3 of the first 11 picks, Ohio State defensive players. Caleb Downs went 11th, Sonny Styles went 7th, and Arvell Reese went 5th. So let's get into this year. So this year, they have a win total of 9.5, which at first glance, very low. Because let's just look at Ryan Day. In the Ryan Day era at Ohio State, he has won 10 or more games every year he has coached that many. So in 2018, he only coached 3 games. They went 3-0. And in 2020, they only played 8 games total, and he won 7 of them. So we can't really take those. But in 2019 and 2021 and beyond, he's won 10 or more games every single year. And if you go look at Ohio State just in general, um, obviously you look at it, they have won 10 or more games every year since 2011 if you exclude the COVID year where they didn't even play 10 games. This has been an all-time great run for Ohio State. So to get a 9.5 win total is very strange. You would think, oh, that's an easy over. Until you look at the schedule. This year, Ohio State, they play 4 teams who are going to be ranked, or sorry, 3 teams who are ranked inside the top 5 already, or top 6 in the coaches poll. So they play at Texas, who, if we go look at the coaches poll, Texas is ranked 4th. They play at Indiana, who in the coaches poll is ranked 6th, and they play Oregon at home, who in the coaches poll is 2nd. That is a brutal schedule. And just in general, let's go over the whole schedule. They get Ball State at home, at Texas, Kent State at home, Illinois at home, at Iowa, which, at Iowa is always tricky, but to be fair to Ryan Day, he's been phenomenal in conference other than Michigan, and it just seems his conference record is insane every single year. Then they get Maryland at home, and then it's at Indiana. Um, and so from this Indiana game, this is the toughest 3 game stretch in all of college football. You have at Indiana, a bye week, at USC, Oregon at home. That is absolutely brutal. They then get Northwestern at home, at Nebraska, and then Michigan at home to end the year in what should be a great rivalry game with Whittingham and Underwood. So that is a very, very, very difficult schedule. So when I first heard, hey, 9.5 win total, your first instinct is say, hey, just go over. They go over every year, but you look at the schedule and it's not out there to say, hey, maybe Texas beats them. It's not out there to say Indiana beats them. It's not out there to say Oregon beats them, right? Those are 3 great teams. Even at USC, that could be very tricky. USC is going to be a good team, and East Coast to West Coast has proven to be very difficult. Uh, a very difficult trip for all teams. So, and let's go back. So the main concern for Ohio State this year is the defense. It is going to take a step back. That is going to be a guarantee. It's not that the defense is going to be terrible or anything, but last year was was an all-time defense. 9 points per game. That's what they gave up. They have three guys go top 11. I don't care who you bring in. They're not as good as Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs is one of the greatest college safeties we've ever seen. You're not going to be able to just snap and replace Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles. Now, Ohio State, they're going to have great players there. I have no doubt. They consistently produce first-round picks, but it's going to be very hard to replace players of that caliber. So the defense is going to take a step back. So where they will be successful, though, is the offense. Last year, this offense scored 33 points per game, and they're returning their leading passer, rusher, and receiver. They're returning Julian Sayin. Last year, Julian Sayin, 77% completion percentage, 3,600 yards, 32 TDs, 8 interceptions. They're returning their leading rusher, Bo Jackson, 1,090 yards, 6 TDs, 200 receiving yards, 1 TD. And of course, they're returning Jeremiah Smith, 1,200 yards, 12 TDs. So they're returning all their top guys on the offensive side of the ball. I also think the O line's going to be really good as well. So the next thing to note is who their offensive coordinator is going to be, and it's going to be Arthur Smith. Now, if you know anything about Arthur Smith, he was obviously at Pittsburgh last year as the OC. He used to be the head coach of the Falcons, where he was all right, nothing great. But this may give us a view of what he can be at Ohio State is what he did in 2019 to 2020, and he was the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans. Now, if you remember anything from those Titans teams in 2019-2020, it was that excuse me, that they had Derrick Henry, and they went to the AFC divisional round because of Derrick Henry. So Arthur Smith is very much a guy who he wants to run the ball. That's going to be what his identity is going to be, and that's going to be key because I do think this offense is going to be even better than last year. And I think it's going to be because of the run game. Again, last year, Bo Jackson had 1,000 yards, but the next highest rusher was C.J. Donaldson with 361. Now, C.J. Donaldson did have 10 TDs, but I think you're going to see more of a run-first approach. If we go back to 2024, where they went 14-2, you look, they had 2,000-yard rushers. They had Junkins and Henderson, who are both in the NFL, both rushed for 1,000 yards. I think we may see something, maybe not like this, where two guys are going for 1,000 yards, but more of a run-first approach, which then opens up the passing game, because that is where I would say the big concern, uh, the only concern on the offensive side of the ball to me this year is that you did lose, obviously, Carnell Tate. So he was kind of the number two there, and they don't really have another like guaranteed type of guy. Now they do have Chris Henry Jr. Obviously, if you know anything about Chris Henry Jr., he's a 5-star, but he's going to be a true freshman. And just me personally, I will never trust a true freshman to just come in and light it up. I know it's becoming more and more common where we see true freshmen come in and just instantly be great. We saw Jeremiah Smith do it. But personally, I still think, hey, let the guy have time to at least develop a little bit. Now, I'm not saying he can't be great right away, but I don't think you can just come in and just bank on him being great right away. Looking at Jeremiah Smith over his first 2 years at Ohio State, it's been nothing short of spectacular, right? 1,300 yards, 15 TDs his first year, 1,200 yards, 12 TDs last year. They're going to continue to double him. They're going to continue to box him. So they're going to need somebody else to step up. Now, yes, Chris Henry Jr. is a 5-star, and he looks like he's going to be great. The question is, can he day one come in and be great already? It's very hard to do. Not many guys can come in and just right away be that type of guy. So we're looking for maybe existing production. Like think about like they had Emeka Ibuka. Before him they had they had JSN. They had Marv. It always felt like they had 2, 3 kind of first round receiver guys and would always overlap, right? Carnell Tate. So for the last couple years, it's been Tate, Abuka, JSN, Marv. They've always kind of had, and Jeremiah Smith has overlapped with them as well. They always had like 2, 3 guys. Even Garrett Wilson, he was overlapped with a couple of those guys. So it just feels like this year, if it's not Chris Henry Jr., if he can't come in and be that spark, who else is going to step up? So I'll point out the only guy who really has sort of existing production coming in, and that's Devin McCoon. I think that's how you say his last name, McCoon or McCain. Well, it's not McCain, but he was at UTSA last year, and he was solid. 700 yards, 8 TDs at UTSA. Maybe he can come in and be an impact player. The only other guy If you look here, this is their receiver room on ESPN. So the only other guy who has any sort of, I would say, already experience is like Kyle Parker. Kyle Parker was at LSU and he had 300 yards and four TDs and 31 receptions last year. So that's like the only other guy who's really had sort of existing production. If not, they're going to have to hope that, one of these guys who is going to come in can be that receiver too. And really, that's the only thing I'm concerned about on this offense. That's how good I think this offense can be. I'm not very concerned about the O line. I'm not concerned about the run game. I think the run game's going to be even better this year, even though last year was rocky at points. They kind of started to figure it out with Bo Jackson. I think it's going to be great this year. Sane, I think is going to be good. I just think with Sane, he needs to be more willing to go deep with the deep with the ball. I felt like sometimes last year he played it a little too safe, but I think that's also because it was his first year starting, and in year two, you're going to see him be more aggressive. So, just making the final point with the 9.5 win total, as we could see here, they're 9.5 with the win total. If we look at them to win the Big Ten, I think they're the favorite. They're plus 185, and rightfully so. Year after year, they kind of come in and show, hey, they are the best. Uh, Indiana won it last year for the first time, and I think they're going to be the main competition. But I do believe that I do think they'll lose a game. I think they'll even lose two games, but I think they'll go 10-2 and get into the college football playoff. I look at the schedule; it's tough. Uh, I do think I'm personally am going to pick Texas, and then I think they drop either the Indiana game or the Oregon game. But I also think they win one of those two, and I think they beat Michigan this year, and go into the college football playoff. And I think the advantage is once they get into the playoff, they're going to have a ton of big games already under their belt. Like sometimes when you see a team go into the playoff, they don't really have a lot of big games, and it's like for Ohio State, no matter who they play in the first round of the college football playoff, or if they do get a bye, they've already played a team just as good because Oregon's going to be probably the second best team going into the year. They have so much talent. Indiana's going to be right there. Texas is going to be right there. So just overall with Ohio State, it's going to be a very interesting year. They play a lot of big games, and I think offensively this might be the best year we've seen in quite some time. Honestly, if we go back to 24, they scored 35 a game, and honestly, I kind of think they're better than they were in 2024 from that perspective. Honestly, I think this might be an even better offense. It has the potential to be. So we'll see and yeah, that's all I got. You know, even though in 2024, I guess last point they did have Will Howard who played phenomenal that year, but I do think this is a better offense than in 2024. So yeah, that's all I got though. Ohio State, it's gonna be an interesting thing. They play a lot of big games, and I'll be watching just like all of you probably. So yeah.